Jason Isaac is founder and CEO of the American Energy Institute, and I can't even believe this is a thing, but we have people so desirous of being in charge of your lives that we've got blue states banding together to continue the electric vehicle mandate. Hi, Jason.
Great to be on, Vaughn. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
it's got absolutely nothing with saving the planet. They just want to control you.
That's absolutely right. It's amazing. We actually got an act of Congress done. It's usually a joke, but they did an act that repealed the waiver that California has that dictates their policies across 17 other states, and including the District of Columbia, that essentially was forcing an EV mandate. Congress passed a bill. President, if he hasn't signed it yet, is definitely going to sign it. It will become law that California can't set emissions regulations for the entire country because that affects interstate commerce. And so this is a big win. Well, I guess 10 of the states didn't like that decision and didn't like that act of Congress, that constitutional authority that Congress has. And so now they've put together a cartel called the Affordable Clean Cars Coalition. Well, there's nothing affordable about EVs. There's really nothing clean about them, as we've seen from the tire degradation and tire wear actually increasing pollution. And when you look at the places where the chemical components and the materials come from, they are not environmentally friendly whatsoever. So maybe they're going to promote hybrids or some sort of little scooters or something. I don't know. Maybe those are affordable and clean.
Yeah, nobody's ever explained to me, though, that when the battery does completely go kerplunk, can it be recycled, or where does it go?
Oh, come on. They're waiting for future technology to learn how to do the recycling.
Oh.
Some of the components can, but
yeah.
it's extremely expensive, and this is the problem right now. It's like, yeah, sure, we can generate electricity from wind and solar, but it's just not going to be reliable, and it's going to be very expensive. And so I think the federal government is waking up to the realization that maybe we need to do cost-benefit analysis on some of these things. That's why I love it. Change subject just a little bit, but Secretary Wright, Department of Energy, just pulled over $300 billion in carbon capture grants because they don't provide a cost benefit. They don't lower the cost of energy, and they serve no purpose in the United States. Hallelujah. Better stewards of our tax dollars all around.
Brains being used. I like here at Southeast Missouri State University, they put solar panels as like the roof, if you will, the cover to the giant carports in the parking lot. I think that's perfectly fine. But I'm also seeing entire agricultural fields are full of these things. And the first hailstorm that goes through, what are they going to do with all that stuff? It's going to ruin the soil for like 300 years.
Yeah, I've heard rumors that potato chip companies are no longer buying potatoes near or on fields that have been used for solar in the past because they're concerned about solar contamination.
Yeah.
In Texas last year, you had 2,200 acres of solar panels completely destroyed by one hailstorm. This is apparently enough electricity generated when the sun shines to produce electricity for 80,000 homes anyways. A massive amount of land that if you had done that power generation in natural gas or coal or nuclear, it would have taken up about a 25th of the amount of land space. So you just need 5% of that 2,200 acres, and it would have been reliable and affordable. But now we've got to worry about the soil contamination that you talked about with
crazy.
Those destroyed solar panels.
But, I mean, the roof thing is a good idea because, I mean, what are you going to do to a parking lot? You just replace a solar panel. I don't know where you take them and put them because, they're not biodegradable. But, if the cities would do that at all city sites and just make the solar panels on the roofs of the parking lots, that would be a much better idea than the ag land. Anyway,
it's a much better use of real estate. It still increases the temperature of those roofs about 5 degrees. So that's something they need to account for, is that you're heating up the materials on the roof underneath those solar panels. So you've got to have the structural engineering to account for that. You've got to have the HVAC account for that increased temperature. And is it worth the trade-offs? And this is something on the EV space that hasn't been done, and that's why the Department of Transportation and the federal government are pulling EV charging infrastructure out of parking garages that are owned by the federal government because they're concerned about the weight. And so there are states that are passing laws that say if you're going to put chargers in garages, Was that garage designed to hold that heavy and that many of those vehicles because they are considerably heavier and they're just not designed to handle that kind of weight?
True story. You know, they're heavy as hell. And that's why when you run out of power, no one can bring you a gallon of electricity. So you can't call a tow truck. You have to get a flatbed. And they've got to take your car the 75 feet to the powering site because you couldn't go 75 more feet and nobody going to push that thing.
You get the Amazon delivery to your house of the solar panel, and then you get DoorDash or, one of these favor apps, and they'll bring the package from your porch out to your car in the middle of nowhere, and so you can charge it up over the next month, and then maybe you'll be able to move your car.
I'm sorry, but this is mental that people want to do this. It's just mental. And, if we were at a place in the world where we knew what to do to dispose of items, if we had all that we needed to produce the batteries, if the tires didn't only last 20,000 miles, if the cars weren't so expensive, if all of these things came into alignment and there were power stations everywhere and we were ready for it, there wouldn't be such a pushback, but we are not there yet.
No, we're not ready for it. In research, there's research out there. I think Markham Mills, formerly the Manhattan Institute, now at the National Center for Energy Analytics, has done some research extensively on this, that if we were to go 100% renewable, that it would, to meet today's demand, which is increasing significantly with artificial intelligence and chips manufacturing, and this is a couple of years ago, it would take 1,000 years to mine all of the materials that we need for today to go 100% renewable. And you're right, Fawn. It's just not feasible. We're not ready for it, and really, we don't need it.
Yeah, and it's not doing anybody any good. So that's that's the part that just frays my brain. It's really not helping all that much. It's costing more. It's making people more poor. It's making people break the law because they can't afford to buy one. I mean, there are just so many things that go along with this. It's stupid. Now, if you want to get a hybrid and do it that way, I'm kind of cool with that because then you kind of have the best of both worlds. But it still should never be a mandate. It just shouldn't be. And he was talking about these what did you call it? The Clean Car Coalition?
The Affordable Clean Car Cartel.
Yeah, well, it starts with affordable. That's the funny part. But I'm not surprised it's Colorado, Delaware, Massachusetts. My dad called it the massive two shits. Maryland, New York, Oregon, Rhode Island, and Washington. I didn't cuss. I pronounced a word the way my dad said it. That's not cussing. That's reflection. All right. So they're blaming the federal government for creating needless chaos and repeated green energy talking points. But when in reality, they're the ones doing it because this doesn't need to happen.
You're absolutely right. It doesn't need to happen. There's nothing affordable and clean about it, as you mentioned. And, I know some of your listeners are probably saying there's not an EV mandate. I don't have to go buy an EV. I just don't have to go buy one if I don't want one. Well, the Department of Transportation, through the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, that's a corporate average fuel economy. They set a requirement that every automobile manufacturer has to meet 50 miles per gallon. At the end of the decade, that will creep up towards over 90 miles per gallon. So everything they manufacture has to average over 90 miles a gallon by the end of the decade. And what happens is they give an EV a rating of 114 miles per gallon. This is some arbitrary number that's just pulled out of thin air that says, we'll call it 114 miles per gallon equivalent. So guess what you have to make a lot of to hit 90 miles per gallon across your fleet? You have to make EVs, a lot of them. Then they give a multiplier. So if it's a pure EV, not a hybrid, if it's a plug-in electric vehicle, they say multiply that number times 6.67. This is the illegal multiplier called the petroleum equivalency factor. I know I'm getting wonky here, but I want to question some of your listeners that are thinking there's not a mandate. So they get credit for over 700 miles per gallon per EV. And in the third quarter of last year, this is where Tesla had almost $800 million in revenue, is selling these credits to other automobile manufacturers so they can artificially inflate their corporate average fuel economy. This is the scam that is forcing the EV mandate. And when you look at the subsidies that EVs receive, it's nearly $100,000 per EV sold in these trading gimmicks. $46,000 of that is because of the distortion of those corporate average fuel economy numbers. I've got the research published at AmericanEnergyInstitute.com if anybody wants to take a look at it. We do a really deep dive into where all these gimmicks are coming from. So the Congress can get rid of the $7,500 tax credit. That's what taxpayers are paying. But every person that goes out and buys a gasoline or diesel vehicle, over $2,000 is baked into the cost of that vehicle to subsidize EVs because of the corporate average fuel economy credit.
That's crap. My car gets 30 miles to the gallon. The truck I used to drive got 8. So they should be thanking me for upgrading instead of trying to mandate me. And how does an electric car get anything per gallon when there are no gallons of anything in it?
They just come up with some crazy rating based on, British thermal units and do energy conversions. And this is probably where some climate scientists said, well, if we're going to mandate EVs, we'll just give it 114. I can back into that math to make it correct, but it's far from correct. It's not anywhere close. They can't do it. And it's really interesting because you've seen Toyota has kind of gone back to hybrids. They're saying, you know what, this EV mandate, this is not the path that are not what our consumers want, and they are going to cost themselves billions of dollars by doing this because they're not getting rid of they can't sell those credits to other automobile manufacturers.
Well, and the people don't buy the cars; they sit on the lots. People don't want them.
Yeah, and the thing is those companies still get credit for manufacturing them. So I've seen pictures recently of all the Cybertrucks parked on parking lots, hundreds of them unsold. Those things are still generating revenue for Tesla because of the corporate average fuel economy credits. So don't feel bad for Elon when he's got hundreds of Cybertrucks going unsold because they are generating millions of dollars of revenue for Tesla in the form of these credits.
He's living his best life, man. That dude's he's awesome. I don't hate him. I don't feel bad for him, but he could have made a nicer truck. I'm just saying that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life. Someone locally has a pure black one, and I swear it looks like something out of Mad Max. I'm going, really? Put some horns on it and an angry clown face on the front, and you're there. That's all you need. Some roll bars across the top.
I've seen the memes, and they're side by side on an interesting-looking dumpster. I was like, there it is.
Yep, there it is. All right. Well, none of this makes sense to me. It's never going to make sense to me because, I'm not a mathematician. I'm not a scientist. But I used to do the chief forecaster of weather in another state. And I'm going to tell you right now, they can't tell you what the weather's going to be in 3 weeks accurately. So you cannot tell me what it's going to be in 100 years. So don't try to tell me what sort of gas mileage a car gets or per gallon it gets when there are no gallons and it's electricity. So this is fuzzy math. They love that. So this is fuzzy math. No thanks.
Yes, they're trying to influence people with fear, and unfortunately it's worked with a lot of kids that are suffering from the so-called climate anxiety. As I tell people, I live a high-carbon lifestyle. I wish the rest of the world could too, because it's where you have economic prosperity, environmental leadership, and those are good things, and the rest of the world should get to experience the high-carbon lifestyle too.
Yeah, and if I ever see a Harley Davidson that I can't hear when it goes by, I'm going to be really mad. I want to hear it.
Yeah, you and me both.
I want to hear it.
That's why their CEO's out the door because he embraced this ESG China political agenda and got some retributions from his shareholders, and he's out the door. They were not focusing on making good vehicles, good motorcycles that their consumers wanted. They were focused on the woke mind virus and pushing things that were contrary to the best interest of shareholders. He's gone. I think you're going to see a resurgence at Harley. They actually did electric vehicles, electric motorcycles a few years ago. They spun that off. They sold it because guess what? Harley riders did not want electric motorcycles.
Yeah, because they're not weenies. They don't want those. I'd rather carry my toolbox and tighten all my screws every 100 miles. Bolts. I'd rather do that.
Yep.
All
yeah.
right.
When Harley was going after Vespa owners, it did not work out too well.
Yeah, just stupid. Jason Isaac, founder, CEO, American Energy Institute. I guess he likes coming on my show because if someone's stupid, I just say they're stupid because there's no other word to define them. I could say they're inadequately mental, but, they're stupid. So the blue states are banding together, continue this electric vehicle insanity. If I were you, I would move now if you're in one of them. Jason, thank you.
Great to be on, Fawn. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.